I'd like to introduce to you our first candidate. Some of you may recognize him, Dr. Victor Kappeler. Dr. Kappeler has had a 35-year relationship with EKU. His roles here have ranged from student to foundation professor, chair, and he's currently the associate dean of our College of Justice and Safety. He will be giving us a brief presentation and saying a few words, and then we'll be opening up the floor to you and let you ask your questions to Dr. Kappeler. I think everybody has received an evaluation. Please feel free to turn those in today or give them to me as long as I have them by the middle of next week. That's perfectly fine. And Dr. Kappeler, thank you.
I'm going to move over here a little bit closer to the center if I can, not that that's any political indication. Is this all right for you all? Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking because I'm more interested in answering your questions and letting you know the things that you may want to know or need to know. But I do want to make a few remarks, particularly about staff and staff relationships. I've probably seen all of you in the hall at one time or another. I probably don't remember everyone's name, but you've seen me around. And I've seen most of you around. But what you probably don't know about me is that I married this Kentucky woman about 35 years ago, and she was an administrative assistant at the University of Kentucky. And she worked both in the business college as administrative assistant, in occupational therapy as an administrative assistant, and later when I moved to Texas to get my doctorate, she was administrative assistant in the music department. So I have lived with someone who has administrative staff experience for a long, long time. So you can imagine the conversations we've had at the end of the day when she came home, especially when she was putting me through a doctoral program. So I'm very well aware of what it's like to be a staff member, how critical the function is to the college and to the university. But I'm also aware sometimes how difficult it can be to be a staff member, both psychologically and financially. Staff often aren't paid at the level that they should be paid for the critical function that they do. And it's sometimes hard to be chained to your desk 40 hours a week and have a grumpy old family member come in and bark at you, knowing that they're going to go home and take a nap afterwards and you're going to be there the rest of the day. So I do kind of have an understanding of what it is like to be a staff member. And I also think to some extent staff members get pushed behind the scenes and we don't always acknowledge the contributions that they make to the university. That having been said, there's also some practical issues on salaries. I think that when we give salaries across the university as percentages, the people who make the least among us are the most disproportionately impacted in a negative way. For example, if you make $30,000 a year and you get 2.5%, it's not quite the same thing as an administrator makes $150,000 a year and gets 2.5%. I'm not sure that's really equitable treatment. And so I think one of the things that I would like to do is push with the central administration to change from a regressive payment to a more progressive payment. And in fact, if we set aside differential pools of money between faculty and staff and didn't do it as a percentage across the board, but did it at dollar-wise, we could elevate the salaries and motivation for the staff. So that's one of the things I think about. The other thing I think about is that, in times of austerity, which higher education is going through, we have to be a little bit smarter about the way we staff and the way we hire faculty. And by that I mean that HR needs to be a little bit more flexible and innovative with their classification systems and give administrators a little bit more leeway in succession planning. So for example, and I don't want to project this onto everyone, but why should staff have to work extra and supplemental jobs to make a decent living? Why is it not possible, for example, to combine some positions, let the university save the 50% fringes that they pay for benefits, and enhance the quality of the salary that a staff member gets? If a staff member is willing to do that and they're willing to work hard, they should be compensated for that. The next aspect of that I think is problematic, particularly for staff, is that at Eastern we pay too low compared to the private market. And oftentimes we can't recruit at the level that we would like to recruit. So I think what we need to do as a college, well, the next need needs to do is push HR to be more innovative, more flexible, think about the needs of not just the faculty, but also the staff who do essential jobs. I can tell you that if I didn't have Janice working with me, I would be a total failure, all right? Because I sign something and I have no idea where it goes or how it magically gets taken care of, but she knows all those things. So I think we need to have a dean that's going to advocate for the staff to the central administration to get some changes, particularly in the HR system. The other thing that I think that's essential for the health and going forward for the staff is for the staff to play a greater role in the decision-making process and the communication with the dean and administration's office. And towards that end, I would say, I think we need a staff council for the college, where staff members could be elected, could meet periodically, just like the faculty do, discuss issues, represent their colleagues' concerns in that forum, and bring them to the dean's office. I think staff have an important role to play, and it's just as an administrative philosophy and management philosophy, I think it's essential that administrators, when they make decisions, that they involve the people who actually have to execute those decisions. Otherwise, they're not good decisions. It's just good management practice. And I think the first step towards that would be to create a staff council where you would elect your representatives. I also know, particularly from my wife, because she trains me pretty regularly, that staff are often reluctant to ask tough questions because they perceive there to be consequences. They don't have the protections that tenured faculty members have. So that forum would allow it to be more anonymous. But the second forum I think we need a way of staff members to be able to communicate with the administration anonymously, to bring up complaints, concerns, needs that they may be less than comfortable bringing up with someone they work for every day. And President Benson, when he came to the university, opened that suggestion box, and anybody could do that. I'd like to do that both electronically, but I'd also like to do it on paper, because there's still a few of us that don't trust the electronic stuff, that they're going to hunt me down for complaining. But there needs to be, and I know this is sounds a little juvenile, but we need a complaint box or a suggestion box where staff members can bring forward to the dean's office their recommendations, their concerns. When I took over as associate dean, Dean Alt appointed me in that position. The first thing I did, so this is not like after the fact rationalizing, the first thing I did was met with all of the staff at SEM and asked them what their needs were. And I was a little bit astonished that only one or two people would speak up and told me some things that they needed. And they were very small things, but made a big impact on their lives. And I couldn't imagine why in a college is so well endowed as we are, that we couldn't get a friggin' paper shredder, for a staff member. Well, I hope I took care of that. Did I take care of that? Okay. Or even the office space that they may occupy may not be conducive to doing their work. So I would like, if you all select me as your dean, I would like to have a more active relationship with the staff. Now, I'm realistic enough to know, and I've watched Dean Alt, who's a wonderful man, work very, very hard and know there's only so many hours in a day, right? So we won't be sitting down talking for 2 hours, each one of us look at the room. That we couldn't get through the week, but we can make avenues for you to have meaningful input into the life of the college, and that would be one of the main emphasis that I would like to carry out if you selected me as your dean. The other thing, this is just kind of a little fun thing, some of this stuff is symbolic too, right? We need to do things that make us feel better. And what I would do is, one thing I would do is have you all pick once a semester, one staff member, and we'll give them deans all parking spot, right? Now, it's not much, but it's something that can be done right away. So I can do the staff council thing. We can do rewards. We can have a more healthy and collegial environment, and we can collaborate more. And that would be my thrust internally. And externally, I can tell you, if you know me at all, I say what I think to anyone. And to my chagrin sometimes, and that's my advantage. But I would want to be an advocate, particularly with the central administration, for the staff. Because I know firsthand what it's like to have to push all your doctor's appointments, your lawn, your laundry, your groceries, your kids to the weekend and not have the flexibility and have to work for people who sometimes seem less than grateful. So that's a general orientation that I have towards staff, just so you know. But I would love to have any questions that you would like to ask me going forward. And I can assure you, regardless of the outcome, I will still try to be an advocate for those issues that you bring up. So, any questions, please? Sorry.
Would you say what your top 2 or 3 priorities would be if you were to be the dean of the college, just not specifically the staff, but just overall?
I just met with President Benson for half an hour, so I just did that, so let me try to remember what I told him. No. I think we have 2 things. I think we have to elevate the academic excellence of the college, and that can go into a long conversation on how we do that. But equally as important, I think we have to pay close attention to the sustainability of the college, economically, students, grants and contracts. And I think because we have very bad and declining demographics in our service region as far as students go, that we have to be very proactive in engaging agencies for contracts for education. We have to be very proactive in building our extended campuses, and we have to be more proactive in the high schools, attracting students to Eastern before they become college students and they go to that place up the interstate a few miles. Those would be my initial priorities. And let me tell you why. It's not because that's a problem. That needs to be done. But we have the luxury of being able to focus on that because Alan Denault has laid a very good foundation for our college, both financially and as far as the humanitarian nature of his administration. And it's only because of previous deans that we have the luxury to address those things that are on the horizon. But I think there's colleagues that would be sitting here who are staff members who are no longer sitting here because we haven't done enough to build that infrastructure in that pipeline. And there's nothing more difficult than having to let good people go because we don't have the resources to keep them. And so I think between elevating the stature and academic bar, if you will, building a sustainable infrastructure, because we have 600 employees. Those are people's lives. This is not just signing paperwork. The decisions we make determines the quality of our lives and who's able to occupy these seats. And given the austerity that's going on, I think we really have to make a concerted effort to reach out and build a sustainable pipeline for the institution, for EKU too. Okay? I hope that answered your question. Yes.
As you know, the College of Justice and Safety has the majority of the funding, outside funding through grants and contracts on campus. What would your approach be to advocate and educate in terms of the value of what we bring to the university?
Yeah. The quickest answer and the truthful answer is greater transparency and greater communication. I mean, I talked with the faculty earlier this morning, and I told them that I would like to have the dean's office have greater communication with everyone else. And I think letting people know what you do and how essential it is to the college and to the university is very important. My last estimate, or my last guess, was about $43 million in grants and contracts coming to the college. And we manage about $85 million, about $85 million a year pass through the college. Particularly advocating with faculty. sometimes there's a disjunction between the indirects that you all generate and their ability to travel to conferences or to get little student lounges built or to renovate and do an annex. So I think probably to educate and communicate more to faculty what the different units that are grants and contracts related do and how essential that is to the health of the college. And I can tell you already in a number of cases, I've had to directly tell faculty, oh, you'd love to go to that trip in Europe. Well, guess what? John Akers generated money for you to get to go on that trip, right? So maybe you ought to think twice about the way you look at grants and contracts. So I think just to be not a bulldog about it, but just informing people on how essential that is, not only to the college, but to the Commonwealth. Because there's a lot of public service that's done that enhances the lives of people outside this institution. So I would like, I guess I would communicate more often, more frequently, and perhaps a little bit more aggressively when those issues come up. Does that answer your question?
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
Beyond the college, moving beyond to other entities within the university, such as with, all the way up to the president's office, that type of thing as well.
Oh, absolutely. My conversation with the president, I took the opportunity to tell him that we generate $43 million in grants and contracts. And that's about 80% of all grants and contracts generated in the entire university. So I did use that opportunity. I know Alan uses that opportunity every chance he gets, and hey, it makes him look good, right? Yeah, they'll hear it. Yeah.
This is kind of a follow-up to both of those questions. But TRC is going through a leadership change at the same time as the college is going through the change for dean. So I think I would just like to know, how would you help to build the relationship with the new TRC director? And what type of support could you see yourself providing in the future to TRC?
Right. Well, let me first off make a confession, right? TRC, by and large, is a black box to me, right? It's a direct report to the dean, but I have had, I don't want to say a lot, but very recently significant contact with at least two of the candidates who are up for that position. I find them both sharp, fun to talk to, and very capable. They would become direct reports to me should I have this. So I would have to hear from them. And you can ask any of the chairs I work with if I'm supportive, if I'm fair and balanced. We're all in it together. We may have to reallocate some things depending upon actual need, but I don't see that as being an issue, and I'm going to be very supportive of it, because let me just tell you the truth. A dean's success in this college rises or falls based in part on the grants and contracts, Tammy's unit, Amy's unit, and TRC. But I can truly tell you that I'm not up to speed with that, because that's not one of the things that Alan has given me as a responsibility. But I know it's essential, and I know they have to be supported, just like I was supported chair. And you can talk to them if you want the dirt.
Okay, thank
Sure.
you. Thanks.
Sir.
You're obviously very familiar with the financial condition of the college. What's your general impression of where we are? How comfortable are you?
Well, first off, I think we're in really good shape. I mean, all you have to do is take a tour across and walk through Case Annex and see what wonderful condition we're in. I mean, we have a wonderful fiscal plan. We have the surplus, right? The other thing I didn't mention, can I take a sidebar for a minute? Professional development. I want to provide a professional development fund, just like faculty get, for staff development. And I can talk more if you answer my question, but let me go back to yours. I'm not trying to get out of it. I've become more acquainted in the last 2 years or 3 years with the budget than I ever have in the 23 years I've been here. And I think we're in very, very good shape. But I also know That having been said, there are a couple of concerns. One concern is that we spend about, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know this, about 65% of our POD monies on personnel costs. And that's too high a ratio. We spend about 45% of the indirects on personnel costs, and that's too high. Now, does that mean I want to lay off people? Absolutely not. But I think this is a caution point, right? Why I said we need to look at succession planning, and we need to say, when someone leaves naturally, do we need to fill that position? But not just do we need to fill that position, can we do it in a smarter way? Can we do some combinations? I think we have to reduce our overall personnel costs to allow us the discretionary funds to continue to enhance and improve. I'm also a tad uncomfortable that sometimes we spend indirects that we haven't yet received, but that's worked out okay. But I think we have to plan for declining revenues from the state. We have to increase our indirects and our grants and contracts. But I think we're in pretty good shape. But personnel is the thing that worries me the most, because if we eat up all our indirects and all our POD money with personnel, and then we have cutbacks, it's difficult. And every time someone receives a raise, that doesn't happen too often here apparently, but the POD has to match that percentage. Anyone who's funded out of POD money rather than university money, when they get, say, a 2.5% raise like the president gave us when he came in, that comes out of POD money. And the president was wise enough to allow grants and contracts not to have to pay that, but I'm not sure that we can plan on that in the future, right? I think if we get another raise, it may actually have to come from grants and contracts. So I think we have to prepare for that, and we have to do succession planning and know, not that we're pushing anyone out, but if there are positions that aren't essential to fill, we have to pick those ahead of time and know what we're going to do. We can't do the automatic default, oh, Professor such and such retires, fill the line, throw them in the same place. We have to constantly readjust and manage our resources. But, you know, again, in part to Dean's wisdom, he has built a financial infrastructure, an accounting system that allows us to manage money like we never could when Gary Cordner was here, or Truett Ricks was here, or to tell you how old I am, even Posey was here. So, and it's in large part to the work that Jim and Jennifer do, staffing. So, did you have any particular aspect? Did I answer your question? Sir.
I'd like to hear how you define student success.
Money. Well, you know, I was having that conversation with the president just a few minutes ago, kind of indirectly. I think we have a couple ways of doing that. I mean, first off, as an academic, I believe in liberal arts education and professional training. I think our role is to educate the population, because you have to have educated citizens to have a democracy. So we have that component of it, and the extent to which we produce educated citizens is one measure of student success. Obviously, jobs are a measure of student success, but we don't control the job market, right? And we don't control the motivation of our students. We can give them, you know, really great degree and call it, you know, this is the wonderful highest degree in the entire world, A+, you know, great, happy, ho-ho degree. But if there's no jobs out there, it doesn't really matter, right? But employment is another measure. But we also have to remember, in this field, in criminal justice, about 75% of the people who get degrees in this field never work in the field at all, right? They go into other industry. My wife's an artist, but she has a degree in horticulture and political science, right? Not really much big demand for political, well, I didn't say that, that's the president's field stuff, sorry. So that can't be, we have to use multiple measures. So how attractive our students are to employers, but also the knowledge base that they leave with, you know, the maturation process and education process. and engaging. Success comes with engaging the students and providing them opportunities and providing them the skill sets that they need to achieve after they leave the university. It's not just what they get on their grade card. I know that was vague, but there's another way to answer it. The university sees student success as retention and graduation rates. So those are measures. So there's multiple measures. Yes.
I know we were just talking, well, you were just talking about when someone naturally leaves, how to, combine maybe some jobs and things. What happens if the university always, piles work on us that's probably really not in our job descriptions and things, and we're overwhelmed and we're short-handed? How would you address that?
Good question, and let me tell you what I'm already doing. And I don't want to be presumptuous, but I've been working with Tony and Corey Rice on doing surveys of different sections of the college. We need to do a job task analysis. We need to know exactly what each faculty and staff member is doing, right? We need to determine what the criticality of the functions are and the frequency of functions are. Unless we know what your workload is, we don't know how to allocate resources. We can do it based on politics or intuition, or we can do it based on actual need. So if you are overwhelmed and you're advising too many students, we need to capture that to know that advising needs another position, right? If you're not, and I think you are, but if you're not, then there are other tasks and activities that we can add in those downtimes to save us money to reinvest somewhere else in perhaps another unit that's just totally overwhelmed. Now, I can tell you, having worked here as long as I have, the workload seems pretty uneven at times, and pretty uneven amongst individuals, right? But you can't reallocate based on politics. You have to have the data to do it. And so what I would propose is continue doing these surveys of our constituents. I completed a survey of marketing. We did an internal survey for your shop, which 2 of you responded to.
I responded.
No, I'm not. Anyway, but more importantly, we do need to do the job task analysis. And in the first year, that's what I would really try to launch so we can get our handle on the unevenness or evenness of the workload and how to redeploy the resources that we have. And the faculty wouldn't like this, but it is quite possible that staffing needs to be improved before faculty member needs to be rehired, or vice versa. And we can't just do it because that's the way we've done it in the past. We have to have succession planning, and it has to be based on data.
One more question.
Sure.
Okay, totally different.
They're all three.
There's always, in my mind, some type of a distance between faculty and staff. What would you do to improve that relationship?
Are all faculty? No. I'm just not
Thank you.
Well, that's what's about communication and input, right? When faculty are making plans, and I've already tried to do this at least a little bit with your all shop. I've asked Aaron, and Aaron's asked for a long time to serve with the curriculum committees, right? Staff need to see the questions that faculty members ask and the deliberations they go through. And faculty need to hear the concerns of implementation that the staff have. I don't think good decisions are made in a vacuum. One of the worst things, and I'm in peril saying this, but I believe it, one of the worst things administrators do is they sit down amongst themselves and they make decisions and tell people how decisions are to go without ever consulting the people that have to enact those decisions. I'll give you a little example. Advising. So the deans, I'm just going to make the dean mad, but the deans, I think, agreed to extended advising period, right? But they didn't coordinate with the registrar to allow the schedule to come out. So we have a whole bunch of students showing up for advising. Well, if the schedule's not out, you can't be advised. So then the student's mad, The advisors are frustrated because they lost time, they could be doing something else because they can't really advise them. They have to come back. And what was a good idea didn't work out so well simply because we didn't include people who are responsible for the activity in the discussion. Now, they don't have to vote on everything, but they certainly need to have input into the processes. And I would try to overlap the faculty and staff a little bit more than they have in the past. And just so you know, this is not lip service, Dr. Kraska has invited his staff and our staff to all the faculty meetings, which they hadn't been done before. We have now have students that go to the faculty meetings. And, you know, we have to be inclusive to make the best decisions. Administrator who makes decisions in isolation makes bad decisions. Even if people don't agree with you, it's better to hear all the facets of it before you make a decision than to do it in isolation. Now, that having been said, I watch how RD works, and I know how time, you know, slips away, and I know committees of 25 people are unwieldy, but I think in strategic locations, we need to do that to come to better decisions. Yes.
You mentioned being an advocate for changing the way HR currently handles the raises. And I know that we've heard talk of them instituting a merit pay system for faculty and staff. Previously, that's just been faculty. So what is your stance on a merit pay system for staff?
I don't know what to tell you because the university will largely dictate those, but if I'm involved in the conversations, I believe in merit pay, right? But I also believe in cost of living for everyone else too, right? Because if you're doing your job and you're doing it well, you may not be the top person, so you may not get a bump, but you deserve a cost of living because we all have to, you know, our light bills go up, right? And our costs go up. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that President Benson likes merit pay for a small strata of individuals. So I don't know how that'll turn out. Obviously, if the president gives me a directive, I'm going to do it, right? Like everyone else. But I think that meritorious work deserves reward. And I think that both the faculty, when they determine a merit pay system, and the staff should have input into how that works, right? And I'll follow your lead, just like I would the faculty's lead. As long as it doesn't turn into across-the-board stuff, we'd probably be good with whatever we negotiate.
If chosen, do you have kind of an idea of an action plan within the first 100 days to a year that you'd like to see?
I'd like to survive. Yeah, I think that the thing I'm really going to do is what I mentioned before. The survey research, the job task analysis, the getting around and talking to all the directors from all the various units, getting a real grasp of the black box that some of them are and what the needs are. But I think that the most important thing we do is the succession planning, the job task analysis, determining what the workloads are, and looking at how we reprioritize in the future. That would be the first. If you want to, say like a 100-day plan, it'd probably turn out to be 200 days because universities move slow. And that's where I would put my primary focus, other than putting out fires every day. Yes.
Just a brag moment. I really am going to miss Dean Alt, but I'm so glad you have applied for it. I so hope you get it.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
You're an awesome guy.
Any other questions? I don't charge, I promise.
You gotta stop on that.
Yeah, that's I'll give you the money later.
Janice might be a check. We'll go.
She just got verified. Here's one thing you can do, if you really want to know, if you have questions about me. go talk to the people I work with. Go see Janet, sit down with her, go see Jennifer, go see Tony, go see Pauline, and they'll tell you exactly what my weaknesses are and what my strengths are. And it's real hard to play this game for 6 years, you know. You are what you are, and what you get is what you see. So thank you very much for your time.